Welcome back. The Minister of Employment and Labour, Thulas Nxesi, says that employers must take measures to protect the health and safety of their employees. Nxesi addressed a media briefing yesterday on the country's back-to-work readiness. And this as a result of the country moving from level 5 of the lockdown regulations to level 4, which will allow more businesses and industries to open and also more South Africans to resume duty. Now, Employment and Labour Minister Nxesi joins us on the line now via Skype to talk more about this. Minister, good morning. Thanks so much for speaking to us here on Morning Live.
Morning, Sakina, and morning to...
Perhaps an obvious question, but just how ready are we, Minister, as a country to go back to work?
I won't say we are not ready, but we have said no designated to reach for to go back to work, so that when the workers come, they find that they are ready and they are able to ensure that they do not spread the virus. And it's going to depend on the employers on a number of things which they have to do for that readiness.
So, Minister, at first it was essential workers only who were allowed to go back to work, and now under level 4, more industries allowed to also return. So can you just give us a general sense, more or less, who is going back to work this week?
It's various categories, and they've been detailed in the Gazette, which was released and signed by Minister of COGTA. They relate to agriculture, forestry, and fishing. Remember, this has to do with the production of food, which we need, the processing of food and so on. All those industries relating to that have been permitted to go work. Electricity, water, and gas, those are very, very important services which we must get. There's something on the manufacturing, and it's in its different categories, manufacturing of a number of things, wholesale products, and a number of products which we need as the basic needs. So all these would be found in the attachments which are there. Category. Something related to was construction of the bridges, the roads, public engineering, wholesale, covering the stores, the spas, on information and communication services. They are also very important. Media, entertainment, but we're not talking about people coming up with where they invite the mass into that. These are to be online when we're talking about media, entertainment, and financial and the business services. These are some of these the work areas which are going to be open, but people must go into those regulations, look into their sectors, what is allowed, what is prohibited.
So we're just going to take a short break because our connection isn't the best at the moment. So we're just going to take a quick break to try and sort it out to see if we can get you on a better line. So let's quickly do that, take an ad break, then we'll continue our conversation with the Minister of Employment and Labour, Thulas Nxesi.
Coronavirus spread internationally and has now hit the shores of South Africa. What are the chances that there'll be massive spread here at home?
The probability that we will get some local transmission is likely very high.
And if that happens, will the country be ready for that?
In terms of laboratory testing preparedness, we are prepared.
But who's at risk of contracting this illness?
Anyone who's within a very close proximity, and it's generally recognized to be less than a meter, might inhale or breathe in those little droplets that are then expelled by the infected person.
The most important question is, how can we prevent spread of the virus?
Washing hands with soap and water is still the most effective. Hand sanitizers are an option when you can't wash your hands or your hands are not visibly dirty.
Who's to blame for the virus and its rapid spread?
We have to find a way forward in Africa that can balance the risk of the virus.
We are currently preparing for what we call the surge or the peak in the number of new infections.
I'm confident about Africa. We should work together under the great leadership of World Health Organization.
Let's keep fighting together to stop the pandemic, support most vulnerable and build a back better in solidarity.
Informal traders are the hardest hit by this lockdown.
How are we going to survive for this period of 21 days?
They live from hand to mouth.
My question is, how am I going to eat if I don't go out and collect card boxes for recycling?
All spaza shops should be opened, including informal food traders, but they must just get a permit from their councillor or from their municipality.
There was a sense of excitement hours after that announcement to say that at least they would now start supporting their families.
And we're in conversation with the Minister of Employment and Labour, Thulas Nxesi, and unfortunately had a poor connection to begin with. But let's hope it is better now, Minister. So you spoke to the industries that are supposed to be coming back online now in the first week of level 4 of our lockdown. Now, is your department working on any project or a projected model, to be more accurate, in terms of how the labour force is likely to be affected by COVID-19 during this level 4 shutdown? And I ask this because this is seeing people going back, and I understand approximately 1.5 million people going back to their jobs at a time when we are seeing an increase in the number of positive cases, but also an increase in the number of testing. Minister?
Well, the little which we're doing at this stage is to work through our inspectors. Our inspectors who are interacting with the workplaces, and they tell them what is expected of them to do. And then if there are any irregularities, they are the ones who are doing that. So thus far, we're still working with our inspectors, and they will be all over the hotspots to deal with whatever arises. But we intend working with all the partners, with the employers. We intend also working with the organized worker groups or even individual workers. That's the only way we are interacting at this particular level.
Would you say there's been enough time for your department to check areas of employment so as to make sure that they are actually in a good position to adhere to the plans regarding safety going forward?
There will never be enough time, Sakina. Remember that these regulations were signed last week, and then we've had to give different departments the directions, which we released also late last week. And a number of employees might have started over the weekend to do the preparations. But we expect that they will go today and start those preparations, what they are supposed to be doing. They might spend a day or two readapting the workplaces. Not when the workers are coming, they might spend that time trying to educate the workers about the disease, the do's and the don'ts. So there will never be enough time. But all what is important is, as much as the companies would want to continue with production, that must not be at the expense of the workers who are exposed to the disease.
Who has oversight over this? Who will be ensuring that, in fact, companies do adhere to these safety requirements?
We have Sakina, our our inspectors, the labor inspectors, are empowered to promote, to monitor, and enforce compliance with the direction. And clearly an employer who does not comply with the directions must be ordered to close business. And we have gone into some of the accredited companies who are in the area of occupational health and safety to come and also help us so that we can be able to have a better reach, because the reality is we are under pressure. We have to be in all the places. And we are saying, for now, we'll be dealing with the hot spots, and we expect that the workers in the factory floor will be able to report to us through our call center number, and whenever there are irregularities. So we expect the cooperation amongst all the social partners.
And what would be the turnaround time? Because we've already seen, for example, at Albany Bakery, where that particular situation was brought to light via social media, where someone or some people had tested positive and the employers went on as per usual. It's happened at some retail outlets as well. So again, who will be responsible for making sure that employers actually adhere to these regulations?
That is why even before there was this loosening of lockdown to stage 4, we've closed a number of retail stores because they've not been adhering to the rules and the regulations. And we're saying, therefore, employers know that there's something called occupational health and safety, and they know that it's a criminal offense, and failure to take the necessary measures, that will be a criminal offense. So we are going to be dealing with this throughout all the stages. And to those who comply, we close. We might be late not to be able to pick them up, but we will continue doing that. Those who comply, we close those. Those who comply, we will leave them. And some of them, it might not be prohibitions. It might even be warnings to correct certain areas and so on. But once the workers get sick, they know what to do. They must be able to take those workers to the appropriate places at their own cost and educate the workers what they are supposed to do.
Evidently, they've been resistant, at least some in some instances. And with respect, Minister, health and occupational safety regulations is not something that came with COVID-19. It's been there. It's been flouted by employees at will in some instances. So what sanctions are likely to be taken against employers who do not, for example, provide basics like masks, like sanitizers? What's going to happen to them?
I'm very happy that, Sakina, you are also not painting all of them with the same brush. It's some. Those who are not complying, definitely there are prohibitions with closing those businesses, and we open criminal charges, because this is about the life of the people. People cannot want to profit at the expense of the workers' lives. They must just respect the regulations. And it's easy to respect these regulations. They must put those committees, they must be able to discuss with the workers whenever there's a problem. So these are very basic issues or basic things which they are supposed to do. And some of them they were supposed to be doing, as you are saying.
Is there a hotline, Minister, for work-related whistleblowers should the work environment not be safe enough?
We have been using the hotline 0800 030 007, but we must concede that the way people were flooding that call center, you would have 400 people at the same time. And when you look into the queue, there's a queue of about 500 lines. But what we are saying, people must be patient, and we are considering putting a special hotline dealing with this, because the other hotline was related to the issues of the UIF and so on. So we're likely to be putting a new hotline. But for now, they must use that 0800 030 007, and they must be patient.
What does being patient mean in an instance like this, Minister, where it could be a situation of life and death? Because the danger in the workplace for people is that there could be people who are there who are asymptomatic, show absolutely no symptoms at all. How do people deal with that? Just yesterday on social media, again, there was a report on the situation at Food Lovers Market at Jabulani Mall that 2 employees there had tested positive for COVID-19, and yet it was business as usual. People were working, people were buying from that establishment. I mean, Minister, are you satisfied that we have enough measures in place to deal with such situations should they arise right now?
By being patient, I mean that if you call the call center, you must accept that you might take a few minutes before you get. That's what I mean. But we are having our labor centers, which are taking all those complaints. We will be publishing the detailed numbers of each and every labor center, which is about 107 labor centers, so that people, depending where they are, they can call that labor center and report that. What we must expect and accept also, Sakina, we have 1.8 registered employers, which means they are different sides, close to 2 million companies. The reality is that we just have about 170 of the inspectors. We are going to add about 500. So our staff will never be enough. We are also going to depend on the responsible employers, socially responsible employers, and the organized labor at the shop floor, so that we can be able to deal with those hotspots. We will never have people who can reach 1.8 employees or monitor them at the same time.
Which, of course, would be scant comfort for some, Minister. But as you say, that is the reality. I just want to run through the issue of exactly what is to be expected of people as they return to the workplace today. So at a very basic level, what are the employers expected to provide at this point as per the regulations?
Every employer has a responsibility that they must notify the workers of the contents of the direction and how it's going to be implemented, and come up with a plan. And they must also inform the employees that if they have COVID-19 symptoms, they must not be at work, and they must grant the paid leave or apply to the TERS. They must appoint, as I've said, the manager within their existing structures, who is going to be leading the whole process and address the concerns of the employers. And they must take measures to minimize the contact between the workers and between workers and the public to prevent transmission, and also the enough distance. We've talked about 1.5 meters now. And they must provide employees with information concerning the COVID and how to prevent that particular transmission. And it's expected that they also must report any diagnosis at the work to the Department of Health, and support contact tracing measures which are initiated by the Department of Health. So those are the basic things which we expect from them. But equally, the workers also have a responsibility to wash and sanitize their hands, to wear the PPEs, and the employers must give those PPEs free to the workers. And the workers must also understand that part of their responsibility is to keep the workstations clean and to follow the directives in relation to health and safety.
And just finally, Minister, you talk about TERS, you talk about the UIF, but we know that in some instances employers have actually abused this in terms of forcing people to take leave, in terms of them getting some form of financial relief instead of applying to the UIF. What sort of rights do employees have in this instance?
Initially, we would encourage the companies to make applications because we're avoiding congestion. And it has become clear that some of the employers have not been able to do that. We know that it happens with the domestic workers. You and I have domestic workers. The first question should be: have we, as the people who are in responsible position at the public level, have we done that? And also the issue of the farm workers is very serious, and the security guard. Now we have started dealing with the individuals. We have drop boxes in our labor offices where they make applications, drop them there. They are being processed. We are still preparing our workplace because we are forced to open the labor centers in order to be able to deal with the individual who are going to work in. We have to put the proper measures. So they do have the right to get their money. They do have the right, but also we've put all those companies where we've paid in our website so that the workers can be able to see that and say, but we have claimed, we have not given in the money. What is happening? So we are trying to deal with all that particular situation.
Well, so much to talk about, so little time. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Minister Thulas Nxesi, Minister of Employment and Labour, talking to us about the country's back-to-work readiness as we start the first working week after almost complete lockdown. Late to news, but Leanne,